Hello. How are you doing today? I hope you're doing well. Um, if you don't know me, if you're new to this channel, my name is Kelvin, and I teach how to invest in real estate. Um, I'm pulling my knowledge from my experience. I've been wholesaling real estate or investing in real estate for about 8 to 10 years now, and I have a course about how to find motivated sellers and also cash buyers. And that course is in the description of this video and all of my other videos as well. Now that that's out the way, the commercial is out the way, um, I want to talk about affordability. Yesterday, I was reading a couple articles about real estate like I do every day. And I read a couple articles about the affordability crisis in real estate. And when you read things like this as a real estate investor, you ask yourself, how is my market being affected by the affordability crisis, and how does that affect me? And I think across the nation, we all share the same problems right now in the real estate market. Supply. So there's not enough houses built, there's not enough new housing being built. And also, there are not enough houses for sale on the market because homeowners, like myself included, we do not want to give up our low interest rates from the late 1910s. I mean, not the 1910s, but the late 2010s. We do not want to give up those 2% interest rates. We don't want to give them up. And I'm in the same boat. Like, me and my wife, we want to move to another house. But every time we start calculating and running the numbers and everything, we realize like how much more we will be paying compared to what we're paying now. And we're like, man, it doesn't make sense to move, unless there's an emergency, like unless this neighborhood that we in, all of a sudden goes to crap, and it's just, it turns bad overnight. Unless something like that happens, then we're ready to move and ready to pay that higher price. But, if nothing changes and we have that choice of staying and paying a low monthly payment or leaving and paying a high monthly payment, if nothing changes as far as like what's going on in our neighborhood right now, we're staying put. As long as we can stand it, we're staying put. And if that it requires us to stay here for another 10 years, we're ready to do so. And I think that all homeowners across the nation are thinking the same thing as well. So there's not enough houses out there. There's not enough people out there who are willing to sell their houses. Now that's homeowners. Landlords. Now, landlords are pretty indifferent. They're like, they don't want to give up their rentals because it's bringing them income, but they'll give it up. It doesn't really hurt them because they don't live there. They're living in their own house, but it does affect their income. So there's still an opportunity to invest into real estate, but you have to really focus mainly on landlords. As far as like homeowners go, you have to wait. You have to wait for that. You have to wait for the market to change to really make a lot of money with the homeowners right now, because a lot of them are not willing to sell right now. People who are in distressed situations, they always need to sell. But I think right now in this real estate environment, people who are in distress are like, teetering in distress. They're on that line, that thin line. Unless they have to sell, unless they have to absolutely sell, they are trying to stay put as much as possible, because if people who are in distress, if they sell their home, I mean, they're going to be paying way more for another home if they can afford it. If they cannot, then they will be staying with someone, living with someone, or, moving into an apartment. And people who go from a home to an apartment, I mean, bro, they are miserable. Not in all cases, but yeah, I've heard every time I hear about someone moving from a house to an apartment, they move to that apartment, but they're always looking for another house to move in. It's just like you don't want to move into an apartment when you move in when you have been living in a house. It's just backwards. So the real estate market, as far as investing goes, is being affected, obviously. In my market, investing is really slow for me, specifically for me. Investing is slow. It's really slow. And I talk to investors all the time. Everyone is saying the same thing. All of my cash buyers are saying the same thing. I mean, they're calling me every month. You have something? Do you have anything? You got something? Do you have anything? No, I don't have anything right now, bro. Not anything that would be useful to you. That's what I say to them. I still run across people who want to sell, because I'm playing a long game. I'm not in real estate investing. I'm not investing in real estate just to make money. Today, I'm investing in real estate so I can make a, a lot of money, plenty of money later on. I think a lot of people miss that. Of course, we're doing all this stuff to make money now. We want to make our money now. We don't want to listen to our fathers and mothers and grandfathers, grandmothers. They're all like, invest, to invest. So when you turn 70, when you retire, you can, have money, you can live comfortably. We don't want to hear that crap. We want money right now. Me personally, I want both. I want money right now, and I also want to make a lot of money later on as well. And later on is relative. It could be next year. I could hit my stride next year, or it can be in the next 20 years. I'm playing the long game in real estate. I'm learning. I love real estate so much because every time I do it, every time I get involved with it in investing, every time I invest or speak to a cash buyer, speak to a seller, it's a new story every time. It's something new to learn every time. And it makes me realize that this thing is just ongoing. Like, you keep learning and you keep making money. And I'm like, man, I want to do this for the rest of my life. I don't even care if I don't make money right now. Like, if I don't make money today, I don't care. I'm still going to look for sellers. I'm still going to talk to cash buyers and talk to sellers or whatever. I'm still going to be doing this, Sam. So I've made the decision that I'm going to be doing this until. And if I don't make any large sums of money in the next 10 years, I'm fine with that. I'm still going to be doing this because this is always the end game. If you have your business or whatever that you're doing as your main thing, or if your main thing is your job, everyone needs to invest. That's always sound advice. You always want to invest. Everyone needs to invest. You either buying, I mean, there's a plethora of things to buy, but the two things that stand out the most are real estate and stocks. For people on the real estate side, we want to buy real estate, and that is what we are going to do. We are going to buy real estate, and we're going to have lots of it. That's what people on the real estate side of investing think. We have that in our mind. We're going to have a lot of properties, and we're going to live off that income, no matter how long that takes. People on the stock side, they say the same thing. But I think people miss, people are desperate, and everyone is in their own type of situation. Everyone has the situation that they're going through. They need money now. And, with investing, it takes baby steps first, and then you learn to fly. You know what I'm saying? And that takes time, because you can't just some people, you hear the stories, the stories that you hear about with people when you hear about people making a lot of money in real estate at a young age, 36, 24, or whatever. If they don't have special skills specifically for real estate, they got lucky. They got lucky, but getting lucky, it coincides with working hard and seeing opportunities. So you have to work hard, and working hard is not like working to where you're sweating. It's just working smarter, and then you have to see the opportunity. As you work, you see more opportunities. But when you hear about those stories, they're few. There's a few stories that you hear about people just making a boatload of money in real estate or stocks in a short amount of time. And it makes it seem like, when you read these stories, it makes it seem like you're being left behind. But for the majority of people, it doesn't work that way. For the majority of us, it takes time, because if you're like me, I'm coming into real estate with no prior experience in real estate whatsoever. Now, I've seen over the years, I've been doing this for 8 to 10 years. I can't even count. I don't even count the years anymore. This is just who I am now. But I've been doing this for 8 to 10 years, and I've seen people who are younger than me make more money than me in a short amount of time, because they have prior experience in construction, and they have, their mom is a realtor or a real estate agent, and they're, privy to, they're able to see deals before they hit the market. Everyone has their advantages. I don't have any. I came into real estate investing with no advantages. And I learned just by rubbing shoulders with different people. So for people like me with no prior experience, no skills for real estate, I don't know how to, I can't look at a house and be like, oh man, what would look nice there is, this color, and, we're going to take this wall out and we're going to put the living room here, or, I don't have that type of skill. I don't have that type of skill, and I don't even want it. I don't even want that type of skill. I'm not in real estate to make things look beautiful, necessarily. I do love it when I provide value. Like, I love to see a house be reinvented again, and then a new family moves there, and that family is happy to be there. That is why I do it. I do it for the value. I'm not really doing it like, I know a lot of investors who are in real estate because they like to make old, ugly houses look pretty. They don't really care about who moves in, what I'm saying? They don't really care about that part of it. One investor I've been working with for a long time, when he flips a house, he makes it look really, really pretty. And he takes pictures, and he shows the pictures to his friends and to me and everyone. Oh, look what I did to this house. This house is so great. And then that's it. Once he flips the house, he doesn't pay attention to that house anymore. He hands it off to the realtor or real estate agent, and that real estate agent sells it, and then a family moves in there, and he doesn't even care. He doesn't even check on, he doesn't look, he doesn't From the moment he turns that house and from an ugly house to a new house, basically, his attention is moved on to the next thing. That's what he does it for. He likes to take something ugly and make it pretty. That's the value that he gets. My value is I follow being a wholesaler or a bird dogger, you know, being a wholesaler specifically, because when you bird dog, you really hand the whole deal off to the investor, and they talk to the seller from the door. They negotiate, so they're talking to the seller. You kind of just hand off. You get the call. You're like, hey, you're getting the call from a seller, and the seller is like, hey, I want to sell my house, and you're like, okay, how much you want to sell it for? And then they'll say, I want to sell it for X. And then that's when you say, okay, well, I have someone who I think may be more interested in your house than I would be. Your house is kind of out of my price range or something like that. That's what you would say as a bird dogger. And then you hand that deal off. You direct that seller to another cash buyer, another investor who may be interested in it. Of course, you want to let the investor know about the place, but you hand it off. You don't do any negotiating for the investor or anything like that, because that's kind of like, you kind of like almost being a realtor or a real estate agent when you do that. But for wholesaling, you are buying it technically. I mean, you are buying it. Well, I guess technically the end investor, the end buyer is buying it. But you are going into contract and saying that you are going to buy it. And that is the case. That's the case. You are the buyer of that property until you find someone to assign your contract to. Once you do that, then that person is technically buying it. But initially, you are the buyer, so being a wholesaler and being that buyer, that initial buyer when you wholesaling, you talk to the seller, you get to know the seller, you get to know everything about the seller, and you follow the seller throughout this whole process. And, that seller ends up selling that property to you, and you end up finding an investor for it. That investor buys it. And then that investor fixes the place up. And then there's a new family that comes in there. And you don't have to necessarily be in contact or anything with the new family that moves there. Just seeing that happen is a great accomplishment. I like that, a great feeling. The seller moving to a new place and now you're parting ways with that seller. But the seller is so happy that you came into their life. You know what I mean? The seller is so happy that you came into their life and took this problem and fixed it for them. That feeling right there is like, that's what you run into most of the time when you're a wholesaler. Your customer is the seller. And you also get some value from seeing the new family living in that property. And because you remember how it looked. I mean, you're right along with the investor who flipped the property. That person may be happy because they did a great job. You're happy because now this property, because of you, you found the property. The seller called you first. It's because of you. You made this property an asset to this neighborhood and the community and the city. Again, that is the value that you get. So when I say I'm happy that a new family moves into the building, I'm not in contact with the new family or anything like that. But I drive by that property after it's sold, after it's flipped and sold. I go by it, months later or a year later or whenever, I'm in the neighborhood and Because once you flip houses in a neighborhood, or you wholesale houses in a neighborhood, or bird dog houses in a neighborhood, you go through that neighborhood again, and you're like, oh man, I flipped that house. I flipped that house. I flipped my contract to a person who flipped that house, or I directed the seller to the investor who flipped that house. But it's yours. You know what I'm saying? You are responsible for it. You identified that property, and you put the whole thing in motion, and you turn that house into something that's valued in this city, in this community. That's the value that you get. That's the value that I get doing this. So it's more than money for me. I do want to make money. I mean, you investing to make money, you know what I'm saying? But it's more than that. But having that type of value in this business, it almost assures you that you will be wealthy. You will have all the money that you want, everything that you want. Having that type of value of turning something into something of value in the community, having that type of value, you stay in this business for the long run, the long term. You stay in it for the long term, because people who only value making a buck today, if they don't make a buck tomorrow, they're out. They're on to the next thing. So, I mean, there have been times when in my early on in my wholesaling career, bird dogging career, there was months that passed by and I didn't make any money. And during those times, you start to reflect, and you're like, man, should I be doing something else? You know what I'm saying? But then once you ask that question, should I be doing something else? You ask another question. Am I doing this for money? What do I like about this stuff? Why am I even doing it? Why am I even waking up in the morning and thinking about real estate, like investing in real estate? Like, why am I thinking about finding that next house? The hunt. Why am I thinking about the hunt? Finding that next property, that hunt, it's like being a pirate and getting that treasure map and going to that island that has the X on there, finding it first, and then going to that island, and then, hunting the island for the X. It's kind of like that. It's like, that's another intriguing thing that I like about, investing in real estate. You're going out there and you hunting. One cash buyer that I know, he calls it killing a whale. He says, oh yeah, every time he talks to me about a house that he flipped or found or whatever, he was like, yeah, when we first get on the phone, he's like, yeah, I killed a whale today, big one. And I was like, what? I was like, when I first spoke to him and he was using that analogy with me, I was like, what? You killed a whale today? He's like, yeah, I killed a whale today, big whale. And if it's something that's not that significant that he flipped or whatever, he's like, I had a little fish today. Caught a fish today. He kind of equates this whole thing with investing in real estate to, early humans going out and hunting for their food, going out there and killing a mammoth or whatever. Comparing that to, if he flipped something and made a lot of money, that's like killing a mammoth. If he didn't make a lot of money, I found a squirrel out there today. At least I ate. But going out there and hunting, if you're really, really in this, you like, man, why am I waking up thinking about this, man? Why am I thinking about that? Why is that so intriguing to me? Why can I not wait to get on my laptop to, find some sellers? You know what I'm saying? Why I can't wait? If you have those types of feelings, you're doing it more. You're doing it for more than money. You know what I'm saying? It's not about money. And see, I had to start reflecting and asking myself those types of questions, like, these feelings, do they equate to money or do they equate to value? Because if you chase the value, the money comes behind the value. You know what I'm saying? People have it so backwards. They love looking for money. They love chasing money. But in reality, if you chase the value, you will inevitably get the money. But people got needs, they have needs, you know what I'm saying? And people who make a lot of money, they have goals, and the money and making more money becomes the goal, new goals. If you make 5,000 this month, you want to make 10,000 next month. So they play that type of game, but what they fail to realize, they don't make as much money as they could make if they will be just focusing on the value. That's the thing that's so backwards. And a lot of investors I know, they are caught up on that as well. You know, one investor I know, he was like, "Oh yeah, I made $1 million this year. Next year, I should be making, $1.5 million or $2 million next year." He's always talking about the money that he's making every year. Oh, next year I'm making more money. Next year I hope that I'm going to make more money next year. The money is the goalpost. You know what I'm saying? People start using money as the goalpost, and they're moving it back further and further and further. But people who focus on value, they end up running circles around these people who just use money, numbers as their goals. When you focus on value, you end up running circles around these people in the long run. In the long run. That's why you got to do things for the long run. And you got to find different types of values other than money. Because I'm telling you, once you start playing that money game and you going up that ladder, that's all you're doing. You're going one step at a time. But once you focus on value, you jump on top of the roof. You know what I'm saying? Like you get there quicker. You get there quicker, and it's more potent that way. So I had to start asking myself these questions early on when I wasn't making any money. I was like, man, why am I doing this? Because my body and mind is more interested in the value that you're providing to the seller and the end buyer, the people, the new family that will move into this building or whatever you're doing. That is what I had to reflect on and realize and be like, oh, you know what? I don't care if I don't make any money this year. I'm doing this for the hunt. And if I keep doing it for the hunt, if I keep satisfying that value, then I will make a lot of money. The money that I set out to make, you know what I'm saying? The amount of money that I set out to make, I will make it eventually. Until that day comes, I'm honing in on my skills. I'm making myself sharper. I'm rubbing, you know what I'm saying? I'm making myself sharper, you know what I'm saying? Because like I was saying at the beginning of the video, like right now is a tough time for real estate. It's a tough time for real estate. And if you're someone that's just focusing on money, you're going to drop out fast. And I had an investor tell me that about the financial crisis, the great financial crisis in 2008, 2007. He was investing during this time, and he told me that during this time, his business went through the roof. I mean, he found so many houses, flipped so many houses during this time. Because why do you think? Because there was no competition. Because when things go to crap, people get fearful and they leave. So he said that there was a lot of investors that he was competing with before the great financial crisis. There was a lot of investors he was competing with, but once the crash happened, all those investors lost money and they got out of real estate. So that just left him in it. You know what I'm saying? That left him. He said, I stayed in because he made sure that his numbers were correct. You know what I'm saying? He invested soundly instead of being too risky, because he's a conservative type of investor. Right now he has a lot of money to invest. And see, when you have a lot of money and resources, you can be more risky compared to somebody like me who doesn't have as much money as he has, I would have to be more conservative with my risk than he has to be. He has more money. He can lose some and it won't be life changing for him. But he was telling me at the time during the great financial crisis, 2007, 2008, a lot of investors got kicked out of real estate basically. And that made it great for him. He said he was just going through and buying. He had a lot of money. He was saving his money. He was saving his money during the time. And once the crashes and the foreclosures and all that started happening, he was just going through and scooping up everything. And right now, that's happening. I would imagine. I don't want to say I know, but I would imagine that is happening right now across the nation. Everyone is like, everyone who is investing in real estate, they're like, oh man, it's just, I think I want to do something else. It's too bad right now. High interest rates, low supply. It's just, you can't find any houses to flip. A lot of people are saying that. So a lot of people are probably, I'm guessing, I'm just guessing, I'm comparing it to the past and what I've spoke to other investors about and the things that they tell me about what happened in the past during the great financial crisis, the last crash, basically. And I would imagine that that's happening right now because things are slow for me. Like I was saying in the beginning of the video, things are real slow for me and things are slow for the investors that I know. They're still doing some flips and buying some rentals, but things are slow compared to, 2019. So, see if you're doing this just for money, you're out, you'll be out. But see, people like me and the investors that I know, we will be in this, until it's over with, well, yeah. 6% interest rates, so this year, I was reading an article yesterday and it was saying that 6% interest rates are pretty much going to be the norm. So, I mean, we have to pay for the inflation, all that money that the Trump administration, the first administration with Trump, all that money that they put into the system with the stimulus checks and all that. We have to pay for all those trillions of dollars, billions and trillions of dollars. And then, they have to do regular spending. And then also they have to do more spending. They had to do more spending in the government to help people out during this crash or this situation that we had that we are still having with the pandemic. PP, those loans that we had that they was giving out to businesses during the pandemic. All that spending, all that new money, all of that new money that was put into the system here, our monetary system, all that money that was put in, we're paying for it, with the inflation and all that, I haven't checked inflation, in a couple months. I haven't checked it, but the last thing I heard, it was still hovering around 3%. It was kind of going up a little bit, and I mean going up is relatively small, because they do it by basis points, which is like 0.01, it's ticking up slowly, but it's still there, it's still there. And the Fed wants to get it down to like 2% or whatever. So they're keeping the rates high until we get to that point. But I think it kind of like went down to around the 3% range, and then it kind of stayed there. It just kind of stayed there, and they're easing up on the rates. But my point is, we're going to have these high interest rates going on for the long term for a while now. It's just something that people have to get used to and see. That's what we're waiting on. That's what we're waiting on as real estate investors. We're waiting on people to get comfortable with the new norm, with 6% interest rates. We're waiting for people to get comfortable with that. So then we can get back out there and it could be like it's 2019 again. So, but you have to wait, you have to wait. And if you stop doing this and go and do something else, maybe you'll be successful doing it. Do what you want to do. But if you stop doing this completely, you'll be left in the dust by people like me and other investors who are still sticking around it, Even though we're not making as much money as we was making, pre-pandemic, even though we're not making as much money as we was then, we're still in it, still reading about real estate, still reading books, and still talking about it to each other. Even though there's no deals out there, we still talking. We're making we're working on our skills, working on ourselves. So you got to find out why you're doing this. Because we got a while to go. We got a while to go. I was reading a couple articles yesterday about the affordability crisis, and some people say we're down 4 million homes. Some people say we're down 1.2 million homes. That's what J.P. Morgan said. That's what they said. They said it's not 4 million. We're not. We don't have a shortage of 4 million homes in America. We have a shortage of 1.2 million. Whatever it is, there is a there's a big issue with the affordability. The Trump administration, they're trying their best to mitigate it. They're trying their best, but from what I'm seeing, they're trying to either lower the interest rates, or they're trying to get investors involved to rent to new tenants to and then, I saw something crazy. It was something about Trump homes or whatever they want to call it, so this is where an investor builds a home, or a builder builds a home, and then they rent the house to a new home buyer. And then they rent the house to this new home buyer for 3 years. And then those 3 years of rent payments that this new home buyer was making during that time turns into a down payment. And of course, I'm sure you heard about the 50-year mortgages and all that. They're trying their best, but none of this stuff is going to do anything. Saying it's not going to do anything at this point. Nothing of significance. Nothing of significance. What really gets affordability down, what really gets the real estate market to a point to where people are able to afford housing is the shortage, the either the 1.2 to 4 million homes that need to be built. That would do it. And of course, lowering the interest rates by the Fed would do it. But like I said, the things that I'm seeing coming out of the Trump administration are not anything that's going to move neither of those. Either of those. I don't see anything making a significant move right now. Maybe on 10 years down the line, but like right now, they're trying, but it's a tough thing to tackle. So it's really something that I was thinking about yesterday, and I was like, man, you got to be in it for the long haul. You got to be in it. You have to be in this for the long term, in order to, see something from it one day. And that's kind of how I look at it, and I'm saying all this to say there's things going on in the real estate market that are unfavorable for real estate investors. So if you get into investing, if you get into real estate investing right now, because of what's going on in the real estate market across the nation, it will make you turn away from it. But I think you should stick with it, because what is the end goal, bro? The end goal is to have passive income coming in at the end of the day, because you can have your own business all you want, but if that business is not set up to where it's autonomous and it doesn't require you to be in it all day, making decisions and making products and doing whatever, working in that business all day, unless you love it. If you love it, then, just do whatever you want. But at the end of the day, you need to invest. That is something that you have to do. Especially if you're coming from low to middle income. Low to middle class. You have to invest, because that's something that we don't do at all. I was looking at some statistics months ago, and it was saying that rich people, wealthy people all they do is invest first. They invest first and then they take whatever is left over and they do whatever they want with it. And see, we're the opposite, as low to middle income, low to middle class. We spend what we want first and then we invest a little bit after. I mean, I'm doing it. I was doing it today. I was doing it today. I was on my Robinhood app, and instead of putting like two or three or five, $10,000 into my investment account, I was like, I'll just put $20 in there. You know what I'm saying? I'll just put $20 in there. But see, if I was really truly on the wealthy side, I would put almost not almost everything I got. I think it's kind of like, I think the good rule of thumb with stocks in particular is like 20 to 30% of your net worth should be in stocks. But see, low to middle in low to middle class people, we 30% of your net income. You crazy? We're not putting that much in there. We're putting like 0.5%. We're putting like 0.05% into the stock market. We not because you hear all these stories around, about investing in the stock market in particular. I don't want to talk too much about that, but my point is you have to invest. That's something that you have to do. No matter what you're doing, you can be running your own business all you want. At the end of the day, you have to invest because that's how you grow your wealth, because your heirs may not want to do whatever you're doing, whatever business that you're doing, they may not want to do it. They may want to do something else. You can't expect your heirs to just come in and take over your family business or your business, whatever you got going on. You can't expect your heirs to come through and be like, oh yeah, I was dreaming of taking over your business when I was little. That could be your child saying it to you later on. I was dreaming of taking over your business. I was dreaming taking, that was my dream. No, you can't expect that. But see, investing makes your money work for you. So your money is, it compounds over time. That's what you want. You want that compounding. So your heirs can have the choice to do whatever they want. That's really the goal. The goal is not really to have your little business going, having your kids or your heirs or whoever taking over your business, keep it going. I mean, if it makes sense to do that, then you do it. You do it, but you're going to run into situations like I'm talking about where you don't have people that want to do what you do. People don't want to do what you do, So you have to have the money working for you. So your heirs and everyone who will be still around after you pass on, they can have the choice to do whatever they want to do, So you have to invest, that thing you can't really ignore. Investing, compound interest and all that. You can't ignore that. You can't ignore what money can do over time, and you can't ignore that because it's too obvious. I mean, I think Warren Buffett, sometimes he says that, if you would have invested $100, he said, if I would have invested $100 into the stock market in 19 whenever, today it would be worth 1 point whatever million dollars. I mean, you cannot ignore that, so you have to do it. In my opinion, you have to be diversified in your investments. You have to invest, not only in real estate, even though I'm a real estate guy, I consider myself a real estate guy. I'm not opposed to investing in the stock market or, CDs or whatever, bonds or whatever. I'm not opposed to it. I think you should invest into all of it. That's why I was speaking about my Robinhood app a minute ago. I'm still, dipping, I kind of, I'm dipping into stock market investing a little bit. I'm learning about it, on the side. I'm learning about it because I'm not opposed to any of that. I think you need to, because these different investment mediums or vehicles, they all go up and down in contrast to the other. Like, real estate can be down this year and stocks can be up, or stocks can be down this year and bonds can be up, or, so you have to be, I think you need to be invested into all of these things, these different things, so investing is more than just investing into one thing. I don't think that's smart. I think you should invest into multiple things. you know, with us being bird doggers, investors in real estate, wholesalers, flippers, or whatever, we're doing these things, we're doing these techniques to make money off of real estate and then invest into real estate. This is our business that we're doing. We're doing it as a business, and then we're taking that our proceeds from this business and putting it into real estate. We invest in real estate. So it's more of a business for us. But it's the best business, in the world to me, because you get to learn about, investing while you're doing it. You can't learn, and then on the side, you have to learn about stocks and bonds and all that type of stuff, like, all those other investment vehicles as well. You have to learn about those on the side. But I like real estate because real estate is tangible. And some may say that some people may say that stocks are tangible as well. It's a big building headquartered somewhere in America. That building is there, and that company is there. That intellectual property is all there. But I kind of agree with one of my cash buyers I've been knowing for a long time. He said, man, like stocks and bonds and all this stuff like that, you can't really see it. You can't really see it and touch it. With real estate, I can touch it. I can go to go to that street or that avenue, or or wherever. I can see the building. I can touch it. I can manipulate whatever I want inside of this box, being the house. I can manipulate whatever I want. I can see the thing. And when he told me that, I was like, man, that's real sound advice. That's real sound advice. I agree with you, because like I like something that I can see. What I can say? You can't really see nothing with stocks and all that, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't recognize it and get involved with it. You need to learn about it, because like I said, diversifying your investment, your money into these different investment vehicles is prudent. It's prudent to do that. You need to do that. You need to do that. Because like I was saying earlier, these things go up and down in contrast with each other, so you need to be up when everything is down. You still need to be up when everything down. When everything is down, you need to be up in one of these vehicles. But that's my spiel today. The point is, you have to invest. You have to invest. And like I was saying a minute ago, the thing I like about real estate is it's tangible, and because we're starting our real estate investing career as wholesalers and bird doggers and flippers or whatever, we're starting it as a business, and then later on it becomes an investment. But I like what I'm doing in real estate, starting as a business, because you get to learn about the investment part as well. Like the investment part of real estate is learning what neighborhoods are good to buy in and what neighborhoods are not good to buy in. Learning whether or not buying a property outright with no loan is a good idea or not. When is that a good idea? That's the investment part. Taking care of your tenants, managing the property so your tenants, because that goes with each other. That coincides with each other. Like taking care of your tenants and taking care of the property, that goes together. Because if you take care of the property, you take care of the tenant. Because if you don't want the tenant to be in any type of distress in your property, so learning how to manage the property, that's the investing side of real estate investing. Managing the property, like I said, knowing whether or not you want to pay off your properties or not. The whole refi till you die thing, you have to know that's an investment strategy. You have to know if that's good for you or not. It depends, because when you refinance a house, the mortgage payment goes up. Or if it's paid off, then you have a new loan in place to pay now that your tenants have to pay. And what if we go through a situation like we just did with the pandemic or the great financial crisis? What if we go through a situation like that and you need to lower your payments significantly in order to keep your tenant there? Because otherwise, if you have a new loan on the property or you just refinance it and now your loan payments are higher, unless you got other properties to offset that, that person would have to move out of that property, and now it's empty. Now you're not getting anything from it. But if you have a loan, and maybe you want to eat, maybe you want that alligator there eating up your money, because it's better than not getting anything at all. But you could, but the alternative to that is selling it. So you would have to sell it. So these people that be talking about refi till you die and all that right there. I don't, that's really not a good strategy for me right now. But that is an investment strategy that that you should learn about and know about. These are investment strategies. This is what happens after you learn how to find properties and learn how to talk to sellers and learn how to talk to investors and learn how to identify a flip, learn how to identify a potential rental. After you get all the basics, the basic stuff out of the way, you learn about the investment side of real estate. The depreciation, that's another thing that's on the investment side of real estate. Learn about depreciation and taxes and how that benefits you or hurts you. That's the investment side. And see, that's what I'm saying. Like when you start like this, bird dog and wholesaling and flipping and all that, starting real estate as a business, you get to learn about the investment part of real estate as you're doing this. Because like I said, everyone has to invest at some point in time. You have to invest. You have to invest. And being a wholesaler, bird dog, or if you want to compare that to stocks, being a stock trader, you're doing it as a business, but at the same time you're learning about the investment part of it. There's it's good to be still in this business while things are going to crap in the real estate market. You still want to stay in. You don't want to get all the way out. I guess that's my overarching point here, is that you don't want to get out. You're getting out because you have money as your goal. That's your goal. Your goal should be value. Thinking about your kids and your grandkids and their kids and their kids later on down the line. That's what you should be thinking about. Not, where can I get the next dollar from? It depends on your situation. You may be a go-getter. You may be a go-getter, and you may be able to, make that type of thinking work for you. But I'm just talking to people like myself, kind of on the fence and being like, I don't know whether or not I should be doing this. And I would say to that person, you should be doing this, but do not lose your day job. Don't lose your main job, because like right now, like for myself, for instance, I'm not making a lot of money in wholesaling right now. But it's not my main source of income. So I can sit here and kind of bite it. I can kind of eat that right now, because it's not, I still got my salary coming in. So I'm not really worried about, I'm not dependent. Like, I don't think that I could get out here and just do real estate. I probably could, but because then your back is against the wall, and you probably could as well. So, do what you want to do. But when you get into this business here, you want to keep your day job. You want to get into it in increments. You want a steady progression. You want your line to be going up steadily. So it all depends on your situation, but I would advise people, like, don't quit your day job, keep your day job, or if you get into it and you manage to make a lot of money. I know some people that they get right into it and they start making enough money where they can live off of it. If you can do that, do that. But I started doing this part-time, and I've been pretty much doing it part-time ever since I started doing it part-time. I just got used to doing it like that, because I'm looking at it as a very long-term thing. And I don't expect to, like I said before, I don't expect to make a whole bunch of money until that time comes. But right now, if I'm not making a lot of money in it right now, like I said, I'm honing in on my skills. I'm building my skills. I'm becoming more educated in real estate investing. I'm not making money, but I'm kind of making money still. I'm getting smarter at the business as every day goes by. The more articles I read about real estate, the more I talk about it and think about it and read books about it, because I do all these things. I read books about it all the time. I'm like, and I didn't even know I was that interested in it until like recently. I was like, dang, I'm kind of looking forward to reading books, real estate books about it. And I didn't get into it because of that. I got into it just to make money. But as time went on, I'm like, dang, I'm really interested in this. I'm really fascinated by how things work, and I like passive income. I like anything that gives you passive income, because I don't like working. Period. I don't like working. I like working for something that in the end is going to give me money, just on autopilot. I like doing the work for that, but I don't like just working, just everyday working, and then there's kind of like no, like, I don't want to quit doing this. I don't want to be working at something every day and then quit it and the money stop coming in. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to stop. I want to stop doing whatever it is and the income stays the same. But see, real estate is something like that. That's how I see real estate going for me later on, down the line. Like, I'm working at it because it's fun. I'm working at it because I like it. But I'm still going to be working at it because I like it, and it's still going to be making money for me, even if I quit it for like, a year or a couple of years. I can still do that. But that's the point. It's just that you have to ask yourself, why you're doing things, and look at your values, and realize what you're paying attention to, and what you're not paying attention to, and what you're doing something for. Because it dictates how long you stay at something. All that dictate your value, your goals, your goals, whatever that goal is. It dictates. I was reading a book yesterday, listening to a book yesterday. That guy said in that book, he said, look at the incentives of people, and that makes you understand why they're doing something. Their incentives. The incentives. Look at the incentive. Like, every time someone does something, you have to say to yourself, what is their incentive? What is the reward that they get for doing this? And that tells you, and he was saying in that book, it kind of tells you everything you need to know about a person. Because he was talking about people on Wall Street and all that. They have the incentive to make money. Now, whether or not that means getting over on the poor, they don't care. Their reward, their incentive is to make money. And if that, and like I said, if that entails them not caring about the poor and kind of eating off the poor, and like the whole GFC was just a whole money grab from the poor to the rich. You know what I'm saying? That's the whole point of why that crash happened during the great financial crisis in 2007, 2008. It was a whole scheme to take money from the poor and give to the rich. Them subprime mortgages and all that stuff. That stuff, they was charging people. They was telling people that they was charging them 7% on their mortgages, but when really they was charging people 12%. I mean, that's just fraud right there in your face. And so when 2007, so they was doing that in the 2000s. So when 2007 came and people started paying that 12%, they start realizing, oh, I'm paying 12%, not 7% on this loan. They start defaulting on all their loans. So but see, that's the incentive in Wall Street during the time, was to make money. And see, that's what the guy was saying in the book. You gotta look and see what a person's incentives are, their rewards are, and because if their reward, for them to get that reward means throwing you under the bus, they may do that. You know what I'm saying? You have to be able to recognize this. So, you know, you gotta invest. You gotta know what you're doing something for. You know, your values. You got to know. You have to recognize your values. You got to invest. Um, you cannot give up. You know, you got to keep going at something, especially when you like doing something. You got to keep going at it. Don't listen to everybody. Everybody, you're gonna have people around you that's gonna tell you like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this. I mean, what you doing? You're not making no money. You ain't doing nothing. What are you doing with your life? You don't have to answer them. You don't have to answer them. Just keep doing what you're doing, as long as you're doing something. You know what I'm saying? You have to be doing something, because they're right if you're not doing nothing. So you got to be doing something. But if you like what you're doing, keep doing it. But you have to figure out how you're gonna make you have to figure out how you're gonna get a value from this. And if your end goal is having generational wealth, that's my end goal, is having generational wealth. If that's your end goal, then you have to figure out how you're gonna make money at some point. You have to be working on those skills. But don't listen to everybody. That there'll be negative Nancy's around you all the time, telling you, what you're doing is nothing. What you don't be comparing yourself to anybody else. Neither. Don't do that, because that'll get you down. You can't compare yourself to anybody. You're doing your own thing. But you got to find out what that thing is, and see if you're on the fence about investing in real estate, wholesaling, bird dogging, flipping, and all that. If you're on the fence about that, I think you should do it. If you're interested in it, I think you should do everything that you're interested in. I think you should do everything that you're interested in. But one of those interests has to make you generational wealth, and see, wholesaling and bird dogging and all this. This is a good thing to get into. It's a good thing to get into. Um, if you want help from me, look in the description. I'm probably going to pin it in the comments. But that's all for today.